Hey, everybody. I'm David Bloom, co-host of this here podcast, Next TMT Talks, with Daniel Frankel here on the podcast with me of Next TMT, the parent newsletter. It's free and weekly, at least for now, hint, hint, and available on nexttmt.com. You can sign up there and also follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, on YouTube, and on Beehive. So we're happy to be here with you this week in Next TMT Talks. We get a bit more into the Warner Brothers acquisition talk, especially whether regulators will know the difference between what Netflix faces and all the various video distributors out there challenging them for view time primacy. Legislators are also threatening dark thoughts about the Middle Eastern investors and Trump in-laws involved in Paramount Skydance's hostile tender offer. In other news, we'll dive into Disney's mildly stunning new investment and partnership with OpenAI and its controversial Sora social video app, and report back on any hallucinations we may have along the way. Also, is enabling user-generated content the key to long-term success for both games and films and TV shows? Overwolf has some ideas. Elsewhere, love them or hate them, those Coke AI Christmas ads give us a way to track the rapid improvements on virtually generated video. Elsewhere, we assess the fallout, so to speak, of a tie-up between three of the world's biggest companies. And yes, this is shocking. Our former employers are caught doing some still more ridiculous shakedownery around the Golden Globes, which merely proves that in some places, sleaze is apparently forever. Finally, a little love for an endangered animal, the mid-budget adult skewing drama. Its latest iteration comes from Netflix, of all places, and stars George Clooney in full George Clooney mode. Will Hollywood keep making these? They certainly aren't putting them in theaters. Anyway, Daniel, let's start. I think you were particularly chuffed about that little Disney deal with OpenAI. $1 billion, which is a lot of money, except when you got a little startup that's most recent round of fundraising was $500 billion. So it's like not even 1%. It's 0.2% investment. It's like, don't spend it all in one place, Sam Altman.
Well, David, I know you roll big over there on the West Side. In our perspective, maybe on the term billions is different. But
now that we've gotten to billions instead of hundreds of thousands, yes, it's a big
it's
win.
$1 billion. And Bob Iger gets on CNBC Squawk Box and starts talking about feeling safe and protected and guardrails. And it feels like it's giving OpenAI and Sam Altman $1 billion. Hey, let's see what you do with this. Let's see if we can trust you. So maybe an early effort to sort of tame the beast a little bit.
Well, to bring it into the circus tent. I think this is very much a deal in line with previous Iger initiatives. I didn't even get into all of them, but he spent $500 million plus earnouts to buy one of the biggest content networks on the early YouTube, and Maker Studios lasted within the Disney realm for about an hour and a half, I think, but they ended up paying like $770 million back when that was real money. Reportedly, Iger was just trying to basically scare the hell out of his own people, try to get them motivated. And then more recently, they did a deal. Disney's been a no-show on games. They'll do some license stuff, some things here and there. When they bought LucasArts and all the Lucasfilm and all the Star Wars related stuff, they got a really good, highly productive, well-regarded, well-respected, award-winning studio, and they promptly dismantled it. So they're not big on gaming, but they went and dropped $1.5 billion into Epic Games, which makes the Unreal Engine, which is used by Disney and lots of others to make a lot of virtual productions, for instance, among much, 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 much else. But they use it in The Mandalorian, famously. And now they got this deal. I talked to some folks that have AI-facing technology, game-facing technology, and they thought, this is a pretty good deal. It brings Disney forward in a fairly safe, pretty guardrailed way into what's going to be the thing for the next 100 years. So maybe
it makes them a partner. Makes them OpenAI is not going to just ignore their phone calls, I guess.
Right. Talk to our lawyers. It's like, no. We got a bat phone now. It's and actually we can't say bat phone because that's actually Warner Brothers IP. So we'll have to say, I don't know, Avengers Assemble or something phone, and to make it Disney appropriate. Yeah, they know somebody to call and they'll respond about as much as they do to anybody that has 0.2%.
Maybe
ownership.
You can clarify this in the interview on Squawk Box. Iger says, well, it comes with, they did not license the voice component. So there's no audio for Goofy or whatever. And they didn't license name and likeness. What does the latter mean? And why would not?
Well, a couple things. So no humans are involved. These are all their cartoon and other non-human characters. So you don't get into name, image, likeness controls. Just like in sports, name, image, likeness is a big deal. And now people get it because sports finally started saying, okay, athletes in college have a right to make money off of what they look like and how they play and all that. They deserve a cut of the action. Well, you don't want to be opening that door with the people who play the live action Snow White, but maybe you do it with the original Snow White. And I don't remember if she's in one of the characters in the 200 or so that they've licensed.
Right.
But if you're doing the live action one, then all of a sudden, what's her name? The young actress who played her, she gets a piece, and she also gets to say whether her name and likeness get to be used. So you're avoiding a whole bunch of licensing headaches and problems and issues that thankfully I'm glad they're avoiding, because Sora had enough of those headaches and problems self-inflicted already in its first few weeks of release. Having more guardrails here, so no voices, nothing longer than 30 seconds, no humans. Those help keep some of the most egregious avenues to rampant abuse, misuse, etc. off the table. Timur Bekmambetov, the wonderful Kazakh director and producer, he did Night Watch and Day Watch in Russia, and then which were hits, horror, vampire, but super over-the-top action films. And he did Wanted with Angelina Jolie and James McAvoy, also super over-the-top, but really fun action films. And more recently, he's been producing a lot and getting involved in developing technologies that have an AI component to them in some cases, including some stuff he'll be announcing more fully in the next few weeks. But he said, look, they seem to have the right things in place from what he could tell from the outside to at least protect them, but do something they absolutely needed to have. And I agree. They absolutely need to move there. And now I think the real issue is between the Fortnite deal and this deal with OpenAI and Sora, what are the other studios going to do? What are the other media companies? How are they going to move into these spaces with some of their material? And they don't have quite the same bench of animated, beloved characters, but a lot of them have something.
Iger's ability to sort of olive branch things between surgent new industries, come up with a package of money and say, hey, let's work together. It seems like you sort of mentioned the historical plane with which that exists. It's an impressive skill set.
But he's got a history, and this feels like it's right out of that playbook. And more power to him because,
generative AI makes more advances in a week than we can keep up with in this weekly show of ours.
Right.
And you some of the things that Coca-Cola was doing sort of showcased their advancements elegantly. Talk about that video, if you could. It's in our newsletter.
Yeah, we have a little YouTube video of some folks talking about the incremental improvements in a year between the 2024 fully AI generated Coca-Cola Christmas ad and its 2025 successor. And they show side-by-side comparisons between 2024 and 2025. You see much more emotion and expressiveness in the character, in the animal figures that are evoked, but also they tap into a lot of, Coke's been around for a century plus as well, and they have lots and lots of IP, and they've tapped into a lot of the visuals from the entire history of the company as well to represent them on screen. 70,000 bits of video, a small team operating in over a 30-day period, probably for far less money than trying to make that same thing more traditionally. I think it looks pretty good. There's plenty of people going, very sloppy. It's like, but it's less sloppy. It's a lot better. It's looking better. And the reality is, this is still early days. So it gives you a really useful sort of fence post to say, okay, they move forward X amount here, X amount here, X amount here. There's no real voice. It's just got music going and stuff like that. I think the music was not AI generated, but might have been. So very interesting stuff, and a really useful place to sort of measure a very specific improvement that doesn't involve a bunch of obscure, sometimes self-reported benchmarks from some AI company.
So the future of video entertainment manufacturing, making, creating, however you want to play it, is kind of up in the air or being reimagined right now. And you have studios who do things the old-fashioned way being transacted for over $80 billion. And that's sort of the backdrop. We talked about this $1 billion deal. We've got an $83 billion one that's hanging in the balance. And we left off last week. We did a little midweek check-in.
It wasn't little. It was pioneering. Who knew stuff happens in the middle of the week
so
that we will talk about? But it definitely hit that when they came out, and it's a deal. It's a big deal.
It's getting lots of pushback from a number of primarily. There's been a few. It's been bipartisan pushback who are really worried about the antitrust competitive aspects of that deal. At the same time, you have a hostile takeover emerging from David Ellison. So we're kind of
with
and you have lawmakers like Elizabeth Warren who don't love that deal either. So a lot of kind of chatter from government workers, and in the meantime, Ted Sarandos said we're fine, we're confident, we're good. So where do we stand on that right now?
I guess I would say where we stand is probably about where AT&T stood a few weeks into buying Warner Brothers back in the day. 6 years ago, 7 years ago. I think it was 8
years ago.
2017. It was Trump won. I think it was 2017 when they started. And the Department of Justice harumphed about, they were doing it to try to have stuff, pipes of different kinds like DirecTV, which they'd also bought, and then content to put in those pipes. And that together was going to make AT&T a much more exciting company than a boring old telecom, the first telecom company. And it turned out it did not do that. John Stakey cut those deals, became CEO, and promptly undid those deals. But they took about 2 years to wade through a court challenge. I mean, the DOJ actually filed suit to block it, got their butts kicked. I mean, the judge just kind of laughed them out of court by the time it was done because they just didn't really have a good case. And I'm curious if DOJ wants to go and block this, if Netflix is serious about this, and if Ellison and all his new friends in high and low places can't persuade some major shareholders to turn and take advantage of a possibly more valuable deal.
Quickly sort of talk about a few of the details. You have Elizabeth Warren who piped up this week and said it's dangerous to have foreign interests, specifically the Saudis on down,
Emirates,
Qatari. That's funny. That foreign money buying our biggest entertainment companies, media companies, is dangerous. And separately, you have Mike Lee and guys on the MAGA side talking about antitrust and Hart-Scott-Rodino rules and etc. They sound like actual policy wonks when they do that, which is kind of impressive. I don't think Mike Lee is the guy I'd count on for sophisticated interpretations of Hart-Scott-Rodino. And I think that as Lena Khan, Tim Scott is
the
National Republican.
Scott's fine. I mean, he's tight with Trump and all that, so you might think he's channeling Trump in some fashion. But and he's popular, but these guys are not judges. They're not judges. It's not going to matter there. They can make noise, but that's about it. I mean, if they really want to update the antitrust laws, about time. Lena Khan tried to do it without benefit of Senate or House guidance, which is tough to do these days.
Well, there's two layers here. There's David Zaslav put off and scared by the fact that there's foreign money that could come under scrutiny here, and DC resist that because it seems like eventually Ellison will bid to a point where separate the linear assets or don't separate them. There's just more money here coming from Paramount, and it might over time become enticing.
Well, it's not even that it becomes enticing. The real question at that point becomes, do you open yourself up to shareholder lawsuits for ignoring a far more valuable deal? Are you meeting your fiduciary duties as a member of the board to accept the best deal? And the best deal has to be interpreted in lots of ways. He's trying to set it out as, we can get, it's more cash, it's more likely to close, more regulatory certainty. That's what he was saying in some of the letters he sent.
Right. But here's my question: what is the likelihood that the Ellisons keep sweetening this deal to the point where that resistance becomes futile to that pressure? Just the sheer undeniability that it's just monetarily a bigger, much better bid. Do you see that?
Well, I can't tell you what the specific number is, but the valuation of the company, instead of it being $83 billion, including $10 billion in debt, versus what's probably $108, that's a $25 billion difference.
Right.
That's a notable where I come from. I could probably scoot by with the $25 billion.
That includes the linear assets, though. I mean, some of that is an actual.
Yeah, but as one of the equity analysts we routinely quote, I can't remember if it was Robert Fishman over MoffettNathanson or Laura Martin at Needham, one of them mentioned, oh, by the way, it appears they're only valuing all of Discovery Global Networks at about $1 billion, which is kind of a slap in the face. It's like, yeah, you guys look up, it's not really worth that much.
Say yes to the dress is worth $1 billion.
Yeah, right. Okay. They could buy into Sora for that, or into OpenAI for. It's like what they should do is say, "Hey, Sam Altman, why don't you just take Discovery Global Networks, and just turn them all into Sora figures, because they're kind of cartoonish anyway, all those reality shows." But that's another story. Look, at some point there is a difference in straight value that becomes problematic, but from shareholder lawsuits, right? Because of that requirement of the board to get the best deal on behalf of the share. And you remember there were suits going on around Paramount when Sherry Redstone did that deal to merge with Skydance, because people were saying, oh, no, you're basically screwing over most shareholders to benefit Sherry. Most of us are not getting a great deal. And to his credit, Ellison tried to cover up some of that with some additional money in various places, both to the preferred stock shareholders and the run-of-the-mill B class, whatever they used to call it. I can't remember now. So he had to react to some of that to sweeten the deal, to take care of other shareholders. Well, this is some of that, but in a different way in terms of the competing bids and how they get valued out. So.
Yeah, it's hard to see which way this goes. I mean, early days for sure.
Well, and again, I just wanted to say, AT&T didn't have any competition. It took 2 years, but they had to fend off DOJ with really a laughable lawsuit. I can't imagine the clowns that are getting put in place. They've run off so many antitrust folks. They've run off so many litigators and career people that are actually pretty good in the DOJ and so many other corners of the federal government, that it'll be really fascinating to see which clown car pulls up in front of the federal courthouse to plead this case, because I'm going to imagine most of them are former beauty queens, or briefly was Trump's personal attorney in some lawsuit by unpaid workers or something. Then they're going to get up there and go, right, this antitrust thing is bad. We just know it's bad because Herr Trump told us that. I mean, this is not who you should be reposing your hopes in, right? If it goes forward, the real question is, do they keep pushing more and more and more and more cash into the kitty? And then the real question is, now that you spend $100 billion, $110 billion, $120 billion to buy this thing, is that the best use of your money? At a time when AI, we're seeing with the Coke ad, is making things a lot cheaper to make and a lot quicker to make, without all that, and you've got $110 billion in debt. How's that work, David?
Bring up another thing, and this came from reminds me of something else you said. This came from Zach Foley, who's a energy environmental reporter for The Hill. I think I saw it on Blue Sky. Somebody retweeted him or whatever you do when you repost, talking about how if
You re-sky it.
that the films that he's most high on for the awards, I think One Problem After Another was one of them, and I forgot the other, but it was Sinners. They probably wouldn't have been made had either of the current deals been made prior to 2025 when those films debuted. And you talked, I think, a little bit in our issue about the mid-budget feature, the typical.
Well, a couple things. So Sinners is special pleading.
I know I'm not classifying those together, but there are many different types of films that once you start consolidating the industry down, and that's already happened to a large extent, you lose DNA. And this has been happening for a while. Stuff that's sort of like adult drama that Focus Features used to like churn out in droves every fall. I'm thinking of some of the other specialty labels. It was a big.
Well, New Line did a lot of that stuff too. People like that. So there was the specialty ones, and they had like their awards chasers, which would be the 10 million and down specialty release with a stair step limited release that opens wider and wider as you get more and more buys. If it works, if it doesn't, you're only in the hole for a few $1,000,000. But I'm really talking about the kind of films that back in the 90s, I always like invoke Kramer versus Kramer, right? Really smart, wins a bunch of Oscars, very well done, grown-up actors, but was widely popular for its time.
Yeah, Noah Baumbach specializes in that kind of divorce drama that depresses.
Yeah, but Warner Brothers used to do a ton of those things, right? So this weekend, or on Friday night, after a very interesting conversation down at Shutters by the beach with an Israeli game technology executive who was in town for the Game Awards this week.
Did you sign him up?
We went out to a nice dinner. What?
Did you sign him up for the newsletter?
I did.
Good.
Game Awards this week. Went home, watched Jay Kelly from Noah Baumbach, a great director who's done several things now for Netflix. And I watched it in the way that God and Noah Baumbach intended, and certainly Ted Sarandos intended, which was on my 65-inch Sony Bravia TV with Charter Spectrum broadband and an Apple TV puck delivering it directly to the screen in fine glory. It was great. And it was George Clooney kind of being George Clooney, superstar actor, the one with adult children who he's now finally having regrets about. But a great movie, really well done. Adam Sandler will definitely get some Oscar noise. Absolutely will get some Oscar noise, which is probably going to be like a Lifetime Achievement Award for him for making so much money for Hollywood for films that nobody in Hollywood wanted to admit they liked, right? So that film is done. But you look at a film like that, and that used to be the thing that Warner Brothers would crank out 7, 8 of those a year, and they would pop up and they'd get some Oscar attention and they would be well liked and they would do 70 million. Sinners, though, doesn't count for that. It is way smarter than just your quick smash and grab horror exploitation film. Ryan Coogler is definitely a top tier, highly regarded director like a Noah Baumbach. It's got a lot to say about race and a lot to say about music and black culture in the South and a whole lot of other things, way more than you expect from a regular horror film. But it is still a horror film, and that audience shows up and keeps showing up. And then you got brains on top of it, and not zombie brains, but real brains. You got some chances, and it ended up doing extremely well. One of the biggest grossing films of the year. Would that have done well if it had been Ryan Coogler, if he would ever do it, for a Warner Brothers within Netflix? Would he still do that? With or without a guaranteed theatrical release? I don't know. Maybe. People, there's a lot of executives. Donald Langley would love to do work with Ryan Coogler. I'm just betting. So, I don't know.
Yeah, it changes things. So is this everybody's wondering, is this a Golden Globes film, David? Jay Kelly?
Yeah.
I asked because they obviously want to talk about the Golden Globes.
Yeah. They're going to want, because for one thing, the Golden Globes bifurcate their awards. So they got dramas and then they got comedy or musical. And, Wicked for Good is not a great film, but it's a big, loud film that came after a very good first half. So that'll be in the musical and comedy thing. Jay Kelly is not really a comedy. Some of those boundaries get a little loose. There's some funny parts in it, I think. And they just want George Clooney to show up.
Yeah.
And maybe win because he's George Clooney, right?
Well, we've gone over this before. It's been a few months, but we're back at it.
No. Let's be clear. We're not back at it. They're back at it. We're just reporting they're back at it.
But you and I both intersected with that award show when we were at Variety. I used to do the Golden Globes issue every year. We knew it was kind of a backwater, strange organization that played by its own rules, if you wanted to call it that. It wasn't necessarily an above board nonprofit. It was
you are couching this in so many delicate phrases, and yet,
it was
let's just say
it was scuzzy as hell.
It was the sleaziest, most unbelievable,
and we liked it. We loved
organization. But it was 88 people you've never heard of working for organizations you've never read, supposedly one each from all those different countries, all voting on the best films of the year. But the real key part for it was that it was the first major award show of the award season, so it kind of kicked off.
Right, we measured. It was
the first week, 10 days of January. So that
if you won a Golden Globe, it could create all sorts of momentum and energy for your film.
Build the momentum. But the other thing that was fun about it, and I will give them credit for this, unlike the Oscars, it was held at the Hilton, and you had tables, and you had food, and you had alcohol. And the alcohol, it turns out, loosened up some of the stars who were otherwise a little tense and made for a kind of a fun, loose-limbed show.
Yeah, culminating with Ricky Gervais and this whole shame spiral that the Chef PA went through. But it was entertaining television. Somehow in the pandemic, the Los Angeles Times comes around and this piece of rotten, low-hanging fruit that had been there for decades, they decide, well, this fruit is rotten. There's something wrong with this. And it led to Variety to climb into it. All of a sudden, we had a big problem with the sort of racial makeup of the HFPA, the way they treated
or the lack of a racial makeup. I mean, it was pretty glowing white. I mean, it was like, I don't know, Saruman the White or something. It was crazy.
Yeah. Well, okay. So it became part of the racial reckoning that was
right
2020
on top of everything else.
And now
there was a lot of self-dealing. A lot of the members were getting paid six figures to do things that weren't clear. It was a nonprofit, but clearly people were profiting for things that really weren't clear what they were profiting from, et cetera, et cetera. There was a lot of sleaze. Plus the whole
Jay Penske buys it.
Right.
His trades are consolidated now. He and his friends, as you point out, there are others involved.
His trade publications, just so we don't confuse the stock traders out there.
Only old
his trade publications covering the
which
industry.
Produces the show. Basically, they own the show, they own the production company, they own the trades that benefit from the promotion for the entries for the nominees, and that was kind of a uncomfortable model for some. It picked up some further dissonance this year when they tried to bring podcasts into it, and the way the podcasts were going to be decided was through Penske's Luminate research division. So that was another level that people pushed back on. There was all sorts of kind of gaudy, unseemly advertiser come-ons. If you want a nomination, buy this $30-40 million $1,000 package.
I thought it was 70,000.
It topped out at 70,000. So the latest is they were peddling in this thing called The Vault. It's a gift guide within a Penske publication called The Robb Report, which has been around for a while, but Penske owns it. And it's a gift guide. Ostensibly, it's an editorial component that it's supposed to be editorial. Oh, buy our $70,000 Golden Globe tickets. So the New York Post reported on it, and they retreated. The offer's gone now. But this prompted the LA Times to write this story this week. Are the Globes worse than ever? It's kind of,
shocked I am.
The Los Angeles Times
Gambling in the
is not a serious publication anymore. It's just not. The fact that this whole thing went full circle and it's not any better, it still serves the same purpose as it did. If you win the Golden Globe for Best Drama, that's a pretty good indicator that you could possibly win an Oscar.
Yeah, you'll definitely be nominated, probably, because nominations usually come 3 or 4 weeks later. But yeah, it absolutely puts you in line to be in the top 5 and probably in the top 3 of any contenders. I mean, the real issue, I mean, it's the ticket thing is actually interesting, and I'm not going to totally roast on that one because the reality is the Motion Picture Academy will throw you out of the Academy if you try to sell your tickets. If you're a member of the Academy and you get the tickets, and they have a little lottery for the people who are not nominees or certain other protected classes, as it were. It's a little bit like the SEC and the Big Ten, but they'll literally eject you. They'll figure out where the tickets came from. Oh, it's not you. You're gone, and the people that sold you the tickets, they're out forever and ever. So I actually don't mind finding a price, even a ridiculous one, for people to take advantage of what is a ridiculous experience, which is having done it, covered the Golden Globes, covered the Oscars, and it's not as fun covering them as it is just going and hanging. But finding a price for it, I kind of doesn't bother me as much as other things, really, because it's not skewing the results to make it look like this crappy Zadora film.
It's a turn of the screw. And I guess what I find kind of funny and ironic is you have this paper that is just sort of beside itself. Are the Globes worse than ever? And they coded their headline with "No one seems to care," and they don't.
That's the other interesting thing.
Penske's making money, CBS is making money. They got 9.2 million people to watch the thing last year, which is a good prime time all at once audience. It is, and the folks that market movie awards and build their marketing foundation based on these awards, they still have the Golden Globes. So nobody cares. They wouldn't have cared the first time if they got disrupted. All that happened was Penske was able to monopolize the thing and turn it into a even more productive cash cow for himself. That's all.
Well, I mean, you have to admire Jay's vertical integration. It is very clever. He saw what was going to be the last bastion of money to finance real journalism, as well as slightly less real journalism out there, which is the bottomless vanity of Hollywood stars and the need for their enablers at studios, talent agencies, media firms, PR firms, makeup people, hair people, Versace and Harry Winston, to suck up to these folks for these things because they get seen by a lot of people. And scraping some of that off.
It's true. Nobody cares. You look at the winners of these Globes. I don't know that they really care how they're voted upon or who gave them this award, as long as they have it and they can market their careers or their project for the next thing.
Right. Well, as long as the red carpet's good, and they say nasty things about Donald Trump, which is probably what's going to happen, and he'll say it doesn't matter, it's a fourth-rate show, it's washed up and whatever.
I've written about like the sausage that I used to make at my last employer, and I noticed that one of our sponsors was touting like we got a Best in Show award from Future PLC last week. It's just like, how that was decided? You said you'd buy an ad, and then you won that award. It's you
said you have a future with Future. Yeah, exactly. That's okay. People should take all these awards with
as long as they don't.
A grain of salt, but a whole block of salt. I mean, even the Oscars. Look, the Oscars have a blind spot. For instance, horror, as smart as Sinners is, ain't going to get much in the way of Oscar love, and it is a really smart, very well-made film. Same with a whole bunch of other stuff. Science fiction films very seldomly get attention. Comedies, I mentioned Adam Sandler, and a lot of his stuff is dumb and a little sophomoric, but hugely popular. And he is consistent. And he's also considered one of the best producers of films in Hollywood. So you got to give, and he markets his thing as in his own way. He does this little late night show circuit. He doesn't really talk to media, which is probably contributes to the, less interest by media in his success. But there's a guy who's carved a 30-plus year career here and done very, very well. I think he's 58 now, 57, something like that. He's done really well. He might finally get some love. And he's done a couple of things. Uncut Gems, he was great in Uncut Gems. He was great in Paul Thomas Anderson's Punch Drunk Love. And no one saw those coming. And he was great in both of those. Safdie Bros, those are auteur level filmmakers. So occasionally he'll do these things and throw everybody off. So maybe this time they'll give him some love. So we'll see.
I hope so.
But it'll be in the Golden Globes. Just guaranteeing it.
So what else we got?
My backdrop. I got one. My backdrop is, you may notice that there's a hand in there burning. It is from the quite amusing satire from the folks who make the TV show Fallout. They did a Yule log sort of take. They call it the Ghoul log, which is the name of the noseless character played by Walter Goggins. I got one. My backdrop is, you may notice that there's a hand in there burning. It is from the quite amusing satire from the folks who make the TV show Fallout. They did a Yule log sort of take. They call it the Ghoul log, which is the name of the noseless character played by Walter Goggins.
That nose, I can't. That's the reason why I can't watch that show.
You just can't handle it. Yeah, a little too much nasal passage there for you. It's like, get there, but for 15 kilos of cocaine, go you, right? I totally get it. But that being said, it's a very amusing little hour and a half YouTube thing. Netflix has done the same thing with 3 of its big franchises, Stranger Things, Wednesday, and the other one I can't remember off the top of my head. But what really got me going was Fallout comes out on Tuesday, season 2 on Amazon Prime. Saw the first episode at a special screening in Venice at a beautifully converted former post office in Venice called the Lighthouse, where it's a co-working and event space now, gorgeous. So they were there, Amazon was there showing off its new season as it's about to come out. Bethesda Softworks, which makes the original games, was celebrating the 25th expansion of its long-running series of Fallout games. Bethesda is owned ultimately by Microsoft. And then the third company they're sponsoring things was Samsung. And Samsung's former Disney streaming exec, Kevin Beatty, gets up on stage because they were partly streaming this live out beyond the 4 walls of the building to say, look, you can play Fallout, in fact, free till Christmas, on the Xbox app in the gaming center on Samsung TVs, newer Samsung TVs. You don't need a whole console. You just have to have you pair up a controller and you can play the game without any console, whether just playing it through the cloud. And this is where Microsoft wants to go with games, because they're building a big subscription offering, just like Netflix has. They're building one for games and doing it through Samsung web-enabled gameplay for cloud gaming is going to be really an interesting next future as we get more broadband and better throughput and stuff.
The promotion for Grand Theft Auto: A Safe House in the Hills, the latest online edition of GTA.
Now, GTA 5 and GTA Online continue to rock along. That guy I met with on Friday, he's like, oh, GTA 5 still so much stuff being created by the fans and sold within the game because GTA's enabled that. There's just so much. So they need to keep feeding the beast, even though eventually they'll come out with GTA 6.
My reticence to include movie trailers in this little enterprise of ours. That said, this was one of the most compelling trailers I've seen in a long time. I mean, these guys really, all of us dudes have this sort of predilection to fantasize about a life of vice. These guys have continued to tap into it.
I fantasize about a life of virtue, having never come close to realizing it. That's just me. Junior.
I'm going to wrap up a few things just really quickly so we can get out of here. Our sponsor this week, Looper Insights, they published their big Streamer of the Month, which is really Merchandiser of the Month. It's a look at which streaming companies and titles did the best in terms of securing digital shelf space, best position on the TV OS of Roku or or your cable company's program guide, etc. And this month was the latest It movie, the Welcome to Derry on HBO Max. That was the top title. And
Yeah.
Amazon Prime Video they have won this every month as a service that I've covered this thing, and that dates back at least 6 months. They were the top service. So that
Oh, it's funny because we talked about horror. So this is a series based on the It franchise, and it brings whole new meaning to the term It girl, things you really don't want to be in dairy, but it's doing very well. It is interesting that they continue to really spike at the top.
and two more things. I'm not going to go into great detail on them. They'll be
Also, thank you, Looper. Thank you, Looper. We love Looper. Thank you.
When you went to sleep on June 30th and you woke up 3 months later on September 1st, there were 303,000 more pay TV subscribers in the U.S. than there were when you went to sleep. That's the first time in a
I don't
quarter.
usually sleep that long, but good to know.
At the Rip Van Winkle of Santa Monica, I was told. Anyway.
Yes.
First growth quarter for pay TV in a while. There's a lot of reasons for that. In this case, it was Charter improving their distribution profile with that free SVOD strategy that we'll get into, but more improvements are coming. Pay TV, linear distribution, if you want to call it that, it may not come in for your cable company or your telecom the way it used to, but that isn't going away, and we'll get into that. Lastly, Paramount, a kind of company with a real duality. They have sold the back-end sort of software as a service, SaaS as it's known, products that help TV networks and programmers move their stuff around for distribution. They also sell back-end stuff for broadband networks to cable companies, and they've been on the kind of innovative edge of products that are sort of x86 Intel processor-driven servers do their work as opposed to proprietary machines. They've been on the forefront of sort of virtualization of that portion of the business, and they're doing quite well in that. They're going to concentrate on that, and they sold their video business to MediaKind this week. So I was going to get into that a little bit. It's a little inside video business technology baseball that we'll explore. But we don't have to talk about it now and bore the shit out of it.
Well, I just want to say one thing, though, about the slightly better subscription pay TV stuff. It's 300,000 out of 50 million households, I think. So a tiny portion, 0.6%, but nice, totally nice. And at a certain point, I think I don't want to call it irreducible, but there's a certain sort of base level. It was 100 million, 110, 103 million or something like that. It's half that now. And it'll probably stay somewhere there and come up a little bit when football season's about to start, and maybe come down a little bit when everybody goes away for summer, because it's easier to sign up and cancel, et cetera, et cetera. There's a baseline level where it doesn't go away, just like radio doesn't go away. It's just not what radio was in 1932 when it was everything.
Well,
right?
There's a couple of things with this genre-based ability to sort of create more streamlined packages. YouTube's going to pursue it. Comcast is pursuing it. Comcast is working with Amazon and Luna Games. That's going to be part of a video service going forward. You start adding services, you start making them more affordable. All of a sudden, this sort of search and discovery problem that streaming in its sort of, a la carte, big giant feast mode never really has solved. If linear solves it all along, maybe content comes back to it and you see a true renaissance. I know we've written it off for dead, talked about it as being sort of like this sort of dead letter office where it slowly fades and private equity ends up eating it and goodbye. That might not happen.
I don't see a quote true renaissance happening. I see a modest revival, perhaps an Indian summer in the autumn of the days of pay TV, where it warms up a little bit more. They solve some of their problems, but there are technological differences that are just not fixable. There are differences that are attainable in streaming that are better experience and a more targeted, more customizable, smarter advertising experience, marketing experience, show recommendation experience, et cetera, et cetera. And those things aren't going away. Not anytime soon.
Well, we'll definitely get back into them. Lastly, before you sing us out of here, I'll ask you your college football playoff pick. Who makes it through the gauntlet?
To be national champion? Probably a replay of the Big Ten championship game. Probably won by Ohio State this time.
That's what
but
I think.
I'd love Indiana. But
you just that's an exact duplicate of my prediction. So
yeah,
we'll go with that.
I mean, those two teams have been pretty impressive. So, and a lot of folks are going to watch, including some on HBO Max, which I'll be interested to hear viewership on that for those early round games that are tucked away on TNT and on HBO Max. I'll be interested.
That is crazy. These are just like the Schlock Bowl. This is like serious rounds of the biggest.
Yeah. Well, the reason it happened, though, remember, they lost out on the NBA. They sued the NBA and they sued Disney and they sued Amazon. And Disney came back and said, okay, we will / ESPN said, we will license a couple of the early round games. And we'll also take Inside the NBA and run that every week on our NBA coverage and some other things to make you go away, which was cheaper for them. And it gave them some programming for a reasonable price. So totally rational.
This time I mean it. I saw the future of the NBA on it was through an aggregated replay last night. I didn't watch it live, but San Antonio handing Oklahoma City its second loss last night. I don't see any two franchise challenging these two franchises anytime soon.
Nope.
If you don't live in San Antonio,
but only one of them's going to make it to the finals. So there's that.
That's true. Demoralizing for us Lakers fans, but third place is good too.
Yeah. Until LeBron finally eases into a much-deserved retirement and they have $50 million to spend on 16 other players or something. Anyway, with that, we will wrap things up. I am David Bloom, co-founder of Next TMT, and this here podcast, Next TMT Talks, with my co-founder Daniel Frankel. You can subscribe to our newsletter, our weekly free newsletter, at nexttmt.com, and that's TM as in media, T.com. And here on not just YouTube for the video part where you can see our shiny, beautiful faces, but audio, which may be preferred by some who will go unmentioned, but on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all the other usual outlets that you may tap. We are so happy for the sponsorship this time around by Looper Insights. Thanks to them. And with all of that, we will wrap this up here, one of our very last podcasts of a momentous 2025. Thanks, everybody.